Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, if you've been living in the modern world for the last, say, decade, you've definitely seen this powerful counter-movement emerge.
hmm
We are, let's face it, absolutely drowning in choices, right? Smothered by possessions. And yet, this relentless pursuit of more, it still seems to define success for so many.
It really does.
So this deep dive starts with a pretty stark question, I think, a provocative one. Why has the art of giving up possession, this whole idea we call minimalism, why has it shifted from just like a design trend to what feels like a necessary psychological philosophy for, well, for survival?
That's an excellent way to frame it
Yeah.
because that shift is precisely what we need to dig into.
Right.
When people think minimalism, they often just picture, those empty white rooms. But that's really just the surface, the aesthetic.
Yeah, below.
The core philosophy, it runs much deeper. It's psychological. Our possessions, they're not just passive objects sitting there on a shelf. They are often secretly governing and draining our most valuable, genuinely non-renewable resources. Our time, our energy, and crucially, our attention.
Okay, so the mission today is essentially to give you this psychological blueprint. Why do you buy things you maybe don't need? And why does getting rid of them feel so surprisingly difficult? We're pulling this directly from behavioral economics and cognitive science.
Exactly. So we're planning to unpack this in roughly 3 stages. First, we're going deep into what we're calling the psychological traps of consumption. These are the mental biases that, frankly, almost guarantee dissatisfaction in the long run.
Okay.
Second, we'll analyze the true, hidden formula for the cost of objects. And believe me, it's much more than just the sticker price.
I bet.
And finally, we'll show you where the research consensus points for achieving genuine, sort of durable satisfaction. And that's about prioritizing experience over mere ownership.
So if you've ever felt, overwhelmed by your own stuff, or maybe bought something, felt that little rush of joy, only to have it vanish almost immediately, then this deep dive is really your guide to hopefully reclaiming some of that mental space. Let's unpack this.
Let's get started.
Consumer culture, it really operates on a pretty simple promise, doesn't it? Happiness is transactional. You buy something, you feel happy.
Right. It's a transaction that keeps the global economy humming, of course. But it fundamentally relies on keeping you perpetually seeking that next fix.
So we need to expose these cognitive traps, the ones that keep us hooked. And let's start with one of the, I guess, cruelest tricks our own biology plays on us, hedonic adaptation, or Hazel adaptation, as it's known academically.
Yes, this concept, it's often visualized as the pleasure treadmill, and it's absolutely fundamental if you want to understand consumer burnout.
Okay, explain the treadmill.
So you buy that new gadget, right, or that designer piece, or maybe you even achieve a major life goal like a promotion. And you definitely experience that rush. It's novelty pleasure. It's a genuine spike in dopamine.
And it feels fantastic at the time. It reinforces the idea that, yes, this purchase was exactly what I needed.
Of course. But here's the thing. Our biology is really designed for survival, not for perpetual bliss. The human brain, it very rapidly adapts to the new normal.
Why does it do that?
Well, think about it. If we stayed endlessly excited about every single new thing, we'd be paralyzed, unable to focus on actual threats or opportunities. Adaptation is necessary so we can shift our focus to new challenges.
Okay.
So that initial kick of happiness, it quickly and inevitably drops back down towards your psychological baseline. That super exciting new phone just becomes, well, my phone, within maybe weeks, sometimes even days.
So if that pleasure always fades, what's the inevitable result? What does that lead to?
It leads to persistent dissatisfaction. It
Right.
has to. If you want to recapture that initial high, you are essentially forced to step back onto that treadmill. You have to chase a bigger, better, often more expensive hit. Researchers have confirmed this cycle pretty much guarantees that any happiness derived purely from material goods is always going to be transient. It's an inherently unsustainable model for finding joy. Because the faster you run on that treadmill, the faster your brain adapts, creating this deficit that only the next, maybe even greater acquisition seems capable of filling.
So it keeps you looking externally for something.
That really must be found internally, yes.
Wow. Okay, so it's a powerful evolutionary mechanism, but it's kind of working against our modern definition of happiness through stuff.
Precisely.
Now, let's move past the trap of just getting things and into the trap of keeping them. What happens when we actually try to let go of these items? This brings us, I think, to the endowment effect. Mukiet et kisi. This feels like the real friction point for minimalism.
It absolutely is.
Mm.
This is the cognitive bias that explains why decluttering can feel mentally agonizing, almost painful sometimes.
Right.
The endowment effect basically dictates that we assign disproportionately higher emotional and even perceived monetary value to items simply because we own them. This value often far exceeds their objective market value.
I see this all the time. Like, I might have an old jacket. Objectively, it's maybe worth $20 to a stranger. But if I try to sell it, my brain starts screaming, no, no, it's worth $50, just because it's mine.
Exactly. The classic behavioral economics research, like that famous coffee mug study, it proves this perfectly.
Tell me about the mugs.
Okay, so they gave one group of people a coffee mug, just gave it to them. Then they asked how much they'd sell it for. Another group, they didn't get a mug, but they were given cash and asked how much they'd be willing to pay for the exact same mug.
And the owners valued it higher.
Significantly higher. It's driven by loss aversion. The psychological pain of letting go of something we possess is typically about twice as powerful as the pleasure we receive from acquiring a new, equivalent item. We hate losing things more than we enjoy gaining them.
Okay, but wait. I have to push back a little here. Isn't some of that retention necessary? Are you seriously arguing we should just ditch, I don't know, our grandmother's china just because it takes up space? Where do you draw the line between functional possession and, necessary, meaningful sentimentality?
That's a really crucial distinction, and the nuance here is absolutely essential. Minimalism isn't about having zero possessions. Not at all. It's about maximizing intentionality.
Intentionality. Yeah.
Problem arises when this endowment effect starts to transform functional living spaces into essentially mere storage units,
Yeah.
warehouses for things that actually start to impede our lives.
Right.
So if your grandmother's china is displayed, maybe you use it occasionally, it brings you joy, then it serves a purpose. It's intentional.
Yeah.
But if it's sealed up in a dusty box in the attic, causing you anxiety every time you think about the space it takes or insuring it,
Yep.
well then the object, which you initially acquired to serve you, is now psychologically dominating you.
Mhm.
And the bias gets particularly strong when we start using that excuse, oh, one day I might need this, for items we haven't even touched in years.
That makes perfect sense. So we acquire things perhaps with intention, but then keeping them becomes driven more by this cognitive inertia, this emotional overvaluation.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's address the motivation for the purchase itself. Because we know it's not always about rational need, is it? When we feel a lack internally, sometimes we turn to compensatory consumption. Telefi Eddie Shitukatim.
Yes, this is basically shopping as a form of self-medication. It acts as a temporary emotional repair tool.
Repair tool. How so?
Well, when a person experiences some kind of psychological void, maybe it's low self-esteem, maybe deep loneliness, perhaps a feeling of helplessness or lack of control in their job shopping, can step in as a kind of proxy solution.
So the purchase isn't really about the item itself. It's more about the feeling of agency, maybe completion that the act of buying provides.
Precisely. The act of choosing, paying for it, acquiring it, it offers this fleeting sense of control. You can't instantly fix your career problems or your social life, but you can instantaneously acquire that shiny new gadget.
Ah.
And furthermore, it plays heavily into identity construction. We often use objects to broadcast the person we wish we were or how we want others to see us. Buying that expensive painting might signal, I am sophisticated. Getting the high-end fitness gear says, look, I am dedicated to health.
But that identity seems fragile. Because it's based on external things, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that is the critical insight here. This compensatory repair is exclusively surface level. It's really just a distraction.
Okay.
So you feel inadequate, you buy something that temporarily masks that feeling by projecting this desired identity. But the purchase never actually addresses the underlying need, the loneliness, the insecurity, the boredom, whatever it is.
So it's like putting a Band-Aid on.
On a deep wound.
Exactly. It's an expensive habit, often used to mediate an internal state, which basically guarantees you'll require another purchase very soon because that underlying void remains completely unfilled.
Okay, so let's quickly summarize section 1. We buy things chasing a high that inevitably quickly fades. That's hedonic adaptation.
Right.
We then struggle fiercely to let go of those now less valuable objects because of the endowment effect.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole cycle keeps going because we often use consumption as this temporary emotional bandage, which is compensatory consumption.
We've got it.
It really is a beautifully constructed trap Psychologically speaking, okay?
No.
So if these psychological mechanisms are pushing us into this cycle of continuous acquisition and retention, we really need a way to quantify the actual damage, right? Minimalism forces us to recognize something that I think consumer culture actively tries to hide from us.
Mm.
The true cost of any given item is far, far greater than just the price tag you pay at the checkout. That's absolutely right. The conventional calculation of cost, it's purely monetary. But when we look at the psychological impact, the cost hits all of our core resources. And that's why we need to introduce what we can call the triple cost formula: money, time, and energy.
Okay, money is the simple one. It's the financial cost, right? The equivalent of the hours you maybe spent working to earn that cash. That's
Yeah,
the obvious part.
that's the obvious part. So let's move straight to the first hidden cost: time. This is the management cost. Think about the entire lifespan of any item you own. It demands specific hours from you over its existence.
How so?
Well, time spent organizing it, cleaning it, searching for it when you misplace it, protecting it, maybe that means insuring it, or carefully moving it when you relocate, and potentially repairing it when it breaks.
Mm. We often buy items thinking they'll save us time, don't we? Like the faster food mixer or the more efficient vacuum cleaner. But we rarely seem to factor in the total cumulative maintenance time over years.
Exactly. Consider owning a large collection of hobby equipment. Maybe you bought it initially to save time or just to enjoy a pastime. But how many hours, honestly, did you spend this year just cleaning that equipment, maybe reorganizing the shelves just to fit it all, and then searching for that specific piece you needed when you finally had time to use it?
That's a good point.
That cheap item you bought 5 years ago. It could still be extracting minutes, maybe even hours of labor from your life every single month just for its continued existence in your orbit. You pay for it once with money, but you maintain it forever with your time.
Okay, that brings us to the most subtle cost, and you argue maybe the most damaging one: energy. The mental cost. This is a psychological burden. It's maybe the hardest to calculate, but perhaps the easiest to feel. How exactly does an inanimate object steal precious mental energy?
Okay, the underlying principle here, and this is supported by neuroscience, is essentially this. Every single item in your visual field occupies a unit of attention in your working memory, even if it's unconscious.
Really, even if I'm not actively thinking about it.
Even then, when your environment is cluttered, your brain is forced to process that visual chaos constantly. It's like a low-grade cognitive load running in the background all the time. Research clearly shows that chaotic visual environments impair our focus and actually reduce the capacity of our working memory.
So that pile of clothes on the chair, the unsorted mail on the counter, that cabinet full of half-used cleaning supplies, they weren't just physical objects taking up space. They're literally background tasks running on your mind's operating system, demanding resources you really need for deeper, more important tasks.
Absolutely. And this excess, this constant processing demand leads directly to a core problem we really must overcome in modern life: decision fatigue.
Decision fatigue. Okay.
If you have too many options constantly demanding your attention, demanding management, you just burn through your cognitive fuel on trivialities.
Let's expand on that decision fatigue example. It's not just about choosing clothes, is it? If I wake up in the morning and walk into a cluttered kitchen, I'm immediately spending mental energy just deciding where to put my keys, where the dirty dishes should go, how to even navigate the counter space to make coffee.
Exactly. Those tiny micro decisions. Where do I store this? Should I use that spoon or this one? Is this thing repairable or should I donate it?
Yeah.
They accumulate incredibly rapidly. By noon, your reserves of cognitive energy, which psychologists sometimes call ego depletion, are substantially reduced.
Or the consequence.
You might find yourself unable to concentrate properly on a complex work task later. Or maybe you struggle to resist an impulse purchase in the afternoon. The energy you wasted deciding between 3 brands of soap or spending 10 minutes organizing the junk drawer again. That's energy you no longer have available for genuine problem solving or creativity or even just emotional regulation.
Wow. So minimalist living is, at its very heart, an energy conservation strategy. By deliberately eliminating the excess, we functionally simplify choices, which then frees up substantial cognitive resources for meaningful, high-value work or connection.
It's about creating a kind of passive efficiency in your life. If your environment is set up intentionally, with only things you truly need and use, many decisions are effectively made for you. If you only own tools that you love and use regularly, the mental energy you might have spent deciding whether to keep or replace that rusty old wrench is just eliminated,
Yeah.
gone.
And this leads us to the immense potential benefit of reduction, this idea of mental serenity and a sort of redefined freedom.
Wow.
When we regain control over our possessions, you're saying we gain something much larger, a sense of psychological stability.
That sense of control is deeply therapeutic, yes.
Hmm.
Think about it. In a world that often feels defined by huge global uncertainties, the one domain you can absolutely control is your own home and the possessions within it. When you become intentional about what stays and what goes, you are effectively gaining control over your immediate psychological domain. And that becomes a powerful tool for managing external stress and uncertainty.
And the practical outcome of that control is heightened focus, maybe creativity.
Research clearly supports this. Minimalist spaces, by their nature, reduce cognitive distraction. When your visual environment is calm, your mind has a better chance of being calmer too. This reduction in the constant demand on your cognitive systems promotes deeper work, better concentration, and often enhanced creativity, simply because the mental resources previously dedicated to processing clutter are now freed up, available for concentrated thought.
This completely reframes the idea of freedom, doesn't it? We often think freedom is the ability to acquire anything we want, but you're arguing that minimalism offers the opposite and perhaps a far more valuable kind of freedom.
It's the freedom from constant obligation. It's a conscious choice to live without being held captive by the sheer volume of things you feel you must constantly maintain, organize, ensure, and worry about. Minimalism is the intentional choice to reallocate your finite resources, your time, your energy, your attention, back towards your core values, and away from things that almost always depreciate, both monetarily and psychologically.
Okay, so we've established that these psychological traps pretty much ensure that material acquisition guarantees a kind of persistent dissatisfaction, not to mention financial waste. So if objects ultimately fail to deliver that lasting satisfaction we crave, the central question becomes, where should we strategically invest our resources, our conserved energy, time, and money? Where do we put them to achieve genuine, lasting happiness?
The answer isn't just, a popular catchphrase floating around. It really is a clear consensus derived from decades of psychological studies that contrast intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards. The answer is we must invest in experiences.
That sounds simple enough, but we really need to understand the mechanism behind it. Why do experiences, things like travel, concerts, learning new skills, overcoming challenges, why do they provide a deeper, more durable kind of satisfaction compared to material goods?
It really comes down to integration and permanence. When you buy a material good, as we discussed, you get that transient dopamine hit, but it's quickly followed by rapid adaptation.
Right, the novelty wears off.
Exactly. But when you invest in an experience, you acquire something that actually compounds over time. While the physical item depreciates, it gets old, breaks, goes out of style, the memory of the experience often appreciates.
Appreciates. Well, this is rooted in what we can call the three pillars of experiential joy.
Okay, let's break down these pillars, starting with perhaps the most fundamental human need, social connection, right? Experiences are often inherently social, aren't they? Or at the very least, they create stories that are meant to be shared later. That shared memory strengthens social bonds. And numerous long-term well-being studies confirm that strong social connection is probably the single greatest predictor of happiness and even longevity.
Wow.
The act of sharing a meaningful experience, whether it's a difficult hike you did together, a major family celebration, or even just a really great shared meal, it triggers the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Material goods, on the other hand, often isolate us. We enjoy our new headphones or our game console alone. Experiences intrinsically tend to connect us.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second pillar, you said it links back to that idea of self-definition we talked about earlier, but in a more durable way.
This is about narrative identity. Experiences become a fundamental, often indelible part of our life story, our narrative. When you reflect on who you are, what truly defines you, it's usually the challenges you overcame, the skills you mastered, the places you saw, the people you connected with.
Not the stuff you bought.
Rarely the stuff. Experiences enrich your self-image because they are internalized. Saying, I ran a marathon, fundamentally alters your self-perception in a way that lasts. Saying, I own an expensive pair of running shoes, just doesn't. Your possessions are ultimately external and fleeting. Your experiences become internal, integrated, and basically permanent parts of who you are.
Okay, internal and permanent. Now, the third pillar is the really interesting one, the one that directly counteracts hedonic adaptation. You called it the pink goggles effect, or psychologically, the reduction of cognitive adaptation.
Yes, this mechanism is truly fascinating. Think about it. When we recall a material purchase from the past, we've adapted to it, right? And we often start to notice its flaws, the annoying scratch on the phone screen, the unexpected difficulty of maintaining the car. It physically depreciates, and it often psychologically depreciates too. However, when we mentally relive a challenging or even just a really fun experience, our minds have this amazing ability to automatically filter out many of the negative aspects. The terrible airport delay, the uncomfortable camping mattress, the sheer exhaustion you felt climbing that hill.
So we romanticize the memory. Our brain actively curates the experience, polishing it up to remember mostly the highlights, the peak moments of achievement or joy.
Exactly. The memory literally appreciates in value over time. Psychologically, you often own a better, fonder version of that experience tomorrow than you did yesterday. You are still enjoying the emotional dividend years later. Material items. They rarely provide any significant emotional dividend past the first few weeks, maybe months, of ownership.
So investing in experiences is truly the ultimate long-term investment strategy for happiness. We've synthesized quite a bit of complex psychological research here.
And the conclusion, I think, is quite clear. Minimalism isn't really about scarcity or deprivation. It is fundamentally about attention enrichment.
Attention enrichment. I like that.
It's a strategic philosophy, one that acknowledges our finite cognitive capacity. By consciously clearing out the low-return clutter, both physical and mental, and eliminating the constant demands of material management, we free up our most precious resources, our time, our money, and especially our cognitive energy, to focus intensely on the things that actually deliver durable, compounding satisfaction, relationships, personal growth, and those identity-shaping experiences.
It really is the ultimate exchange, isn't it? Trading the inherent stress of accumulation for the potential serenity of focus.
Yeah.
So this deep dive has really shown us that the relentless path to, more often, counterintuitively, leads to less satisfaction. It's driven by these powerful, persistent psychological traps we've uncovered. We identified the hedonic treadmill, ensuring joy from stuff is always temporary. We wrestled with the endowment bias, that feeling that makes disposal so surprisingly painful. And we quantified the significant mental energy cost extracted by every single unnecessary item we allow into our lives.
And the way out, it isn't necessarily complicated, but it absolutely requires intentionality. The research consistently confirms that the solution lies in consciously shifting your investment strategy, moving away from quickly depreciating, often isolationist possessions, and towards durable, socially connected, and identity-shaping experiences.
So minimalism becomes this conscious, strategic decision to free up our mental bandwidth, allowing us to deploy our most valuable resources, our limited attention, where they can generate the highest returns on happiness and meaning.
And that leads us, I think, to the final defining statement of this whole philosophy. The true goal of minimalism isn't merely to own fewer things. That's just a byproduct, really. The real goal is to fully and intentionally enjoy everything you do possess and everything you experience. It's about maximizing your intentionality and minimizing your liabilities, the things that drain you.
So we leave you today with this final, maybe provocative thought to consider as you perhaps look around your own space later. If every unnecessary item truly costs you a unit of your precious attention, what crucial mental space are you currently willing to reclaim starting right now? What are you holding on to that is actively costing you the freedom to focus on what genuinely matters in your life?
That really is the ultimate cost-benefit analysis for modern living, isn't it? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of letting go.
Until next time, try to stay simple, stay meaningful, and definitely stay curious. Goodbye.